Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Price, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Great. Juror 61 is not here yet. She's running late. She missed the shuttle. She's walking from the lot. We're going to go pick her up. I'm worried what's going to happen to her when she gets into the jury room. They made it very clear. They were ready and they knew who was missing. The quotation was, do you need to ask? Mr. Rucker, anything from the state while we wait a few minutes for juror 61?
Yes, Judge, I do. I'll just hand the note.
Okay, you want to process that note first?
Yes.
So, Mr. Rucker, are you in a position to tell me what we need to talk about?
Two things. One, I wanted to report back to the court with regards to what we've learned on the motion to quash.
Okay. Motions. Yeah.
So, yesterday afternoon after the court, I had an opportunity to speak with Tracy Flanagan, who is the public information officer for the Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
And after speaking with Ms. Flanagan, she will be able to say to the court that she was present for an April 27, 2017 interview that was conducted at the Wright Street facility between Mark Winnie and the defendant.
Okay.
What she relays to me is that she really generally can say she was there. She remembers Mark Winnie being there with his photographer. She was in a close proximity, but as she sits here today, she has really no independent, specific recollections about what was said.
Would she say, I could hear what was being said, but I don't remember what was said? Or is it, I wasn't even within earshot?
I think what she will say is, I was close enough to be within earshot, but I really wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
And she's here this morning. I did ask her to come by.
Okay.
In case we needed her.
She's within earshot, doesn't recall what was said. Is she able to say, but there were 3 deputies right there, or I'm it? I would have been the only person besides Winnie and cameraman and defendant within earshot.
I believe she would say that she was the person that was it.
Okay.
There was no one else within earshot. And when I say scant details, she can tell you, I know they were talking about Mr. McIver's wife. I know they were talking about money.
The case.
Yeah, the case. But I can't really tell you any specifics.
Okay.
She was also present, and I want to say to the court too, on April 27th of 2017, there were 2 news reports released that the state would be seeking to use, both with Mark Winnie, both that occurred at the same time, but the newscast came out, I think one was at 6, the other one was at 11.
But your understanding is it's the very same source material.
Correct.
There was the interview on the 27th. It was broadcast twice, maybe different parts of it were broadcast.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then, Your Honor, on April the 28th, the next day, Ms. Flanagan was also present at the Fulton County Jail located at Wright Street when the defendant was interviewed by reporter Morris Diggs. And she relates the same information. She was there, she was present. I don't believe anyone else was within earshot. She can recall the event itself and some scant details, but she did not commit any of the specifics to memory.
Okay. The Mark Winnie situation, what you had relayed before, is that you actually didn't have any questions for Mr. Winnie. The parts of the interview you were interested in were contained in what was actually broadcast.
That's correct.
Okay. Whereas with Morris Diggs, it got more complicated because there were things that were broadcast you could see were coming from Mr. McIver's mouth. He's talking on the screen. And then there's the classic, now here's Morse Diggs, maybe outside the jail saying, and another thing he said was, and I think the quote you were interested in was, the gun slipped out of his hand.
Correct.
But it's Morse Diggs saying that, not there with the defendant right next to him,
That's
who would say, no, that's not what happened. It's Morse Diggs after his encounter with the defendant.
That's correct.
Is there anything from the Diggs interview with the defendant that was not broadcast that you are seeking to obtain from the media?
No.
So on the Mark Winnie side of things, it doesn't sound like you're trying to obtain anything. You have what you have.
Correct.
And we can get some defense input on what ought to happen, if anything, with those two broadcasts on, I assume, Channel 2.
Correct.
With Morris Diggs, you've got the broadcasts. You don't need unshown content.
That's correct.
But you need Diggs, Mr. Diggs, to answer the question. You just saw what you said. Is
Right.
that what Mr. McIver told?
That's correct.
Okay.
And really, if I had the opportunity to speak with him, which, you know, of course, since he's represented by counsel, I have not been able to do, I probably could give the court an even, you know, if he says, hey, listen, I got this from one of his friends, then, you know, of course, then I have that. He's in the Mark Winnie category. I can just seek to introduce what was shown, and that would be it.
Okay.
There's one additional interview. Mr. Winnie also was able to get access to interview the defendant at the North Fulton County Annex. That occurred in June of I believe 2017. And there again, I would just be seeking to introduce what was shown. I do believe Ms. Flanagan was present also for that interview, and I believe her recollection would be the same.
So this is Mr. Winnie again,
Correct.
talking to the defendant,
That's
now
correct.
at the North Annex, and Ms. Flanagan was present. And your understanding from talking with her is that she'd say, sure, I was within earshot. I'm it, there aren't other deputies. I don't recall any specifics they were obviously talking about.
That's correct.
Okay. Anything new? I guess Ms. Hobbs, we've covered that. We know what the issues are there.
Right.
And then with Mr. Schneider, I think you've covered that. It's not one where there's footage. It's trying to figure out who said what about how the gun is charged.
That's correct.
Okay. That's helpful information. Have you, having gathered that information, had a chance to circle back with Ms. Counts?
We spoke as recently as 2 days ago, and I asked her, would she please inquire about a couple of things. One, the source of Mr. Diggs' statement, and also to speak with Ms. Hobbs to gather more information about the communications between Ms. Hobbs and Bill Crane.
Okay.
And have not heard back from her. And we attempted to call her last night, and we'll try again today.
Okay. All right. Well, that's more info. I appreciate that. It may be that we need Ms. Flanagan here when Ms. Counts and the lawyer for Mr. Winnie are here, although it really doesn't sound like with the Winnie situation, you need any witnesses. It really is what's the defense going to say about playing those two, well, it's 3 pieces of footage.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
My second issue, just very briefly, Judge, is I wanted to get on your calendar regarding the Skype motion. Ms. Rudder, I did see her this morning, and so she's here and perhaps can make some representations to the court about the state's position and when and if you'd be willing to hear our response.
Okay. Is Juror 61 here now? Okay, let's check. Because if she's here, I want us to get underway.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to keep Ms. Rudder sitting around. So we can set a time that we'll do it. At lunch today, your lunch break, I actually am handling a walk-in civil matter right here, and then I have to go to a meeting, so it wouldn't be at lunch today. But we'll figure out the
As
time.
long as we can just schedule it, so she
Sure.
knows that she can be here.
Yep,
She's
All right.
present, Your Honor.
great.
Can we get a kind of a preview of what the state's position is going to be, so I can respond intelligently as opposed to...
You know what I'm going to do is let you talk with Ms. Rutter. If you don't have the first witness, if she wants to give you a preview, she can do that. It would be great if she would, so you can respond. I'm confident your response would be intelligent. It's just how prepared it would be. So why don't you talk with her at your leisure and hers, but I don't need to do that right now. And, well, we're going to get started, and you guys step out and talk about what you want to talk about. Anything else from the defense?
Your Honor, I think we'll be hearing from Ken Rickert today,
Okay.
and he was part of there was a lawsuit between DRS and Diane McIver's estate. They settled it. The settlement is subject to a confidentiality agreement, I understand, but I wanted to ask him just briefly about the settlement and what the settlement was involved in her Keyman life insurance policy that DRS had, as well as some other assets. I don't know if Mr. Rickert, is going to have a problem talking about that because of the confidentiality agreement, but maybe at some point before he comes to testify, we can ask him if
Sure.
he needs some authorization from the court.
Okay. And I'll sort of, any issue, it seems like not an issue that implicates the state so much, it would be a concern Mr. Rickert would have. Do you have a position on that, other than I think it's wise to flag that with Mr. Rickert before he's in the middle of his
I
testimony?
think we just bring that in.
Can I briefly request a little bit of clarification? I'm supposed to be at a conference giving a presentation at 10 a.m. in Athens, which I'm happy to cancel or will cancel. Is there any idea of a specific timing here today so I can make them aware that I won't be speaking?
You're supposed to be in Athens at 10 a.m. today?
I was on my way to Athens when I turned around.
Oh, you should go to Athens. I've talked with Mr. Samuel.
We can do it anytime. I mean,
Yeah.
we can do it Monday.
I don't mind doing it today at all. This takes precedence. I just wanted to see what time it would be so I could make them aware.
It would be late afternoon if we do it, because I can't at lunch break today. I've got this walk-in pro se guy and then a meeting I have to go to. So,
I mean, when do you want to do this, Scott? If it's not till late next week, we can do it anytime next week. I just want to get it.
It's my understanding we're going to have an evidentiary hearing so that we have to report when we want to do a testimony from witnesses. We can do the legal argument, I think, 5 or 10 minutes, but then if, depending on which side, which position.
sounds like you guys should talk, because there's some thresholds that might not be clearable before you even get to the evidentiary hearing. So maybe even while you're driving, you could talk. I don't want to make you late for the Athens thing. It would help Mr. Samuel, I think, if he understood your perspective on this. Because we stopped at 9.2 and didn't get past that. You may have a theory. I don't want to talk about it. I want to get the jurors in here. But you guys can talk about it and figure it out from there. All right, so we'll get with Mr. Rickert before he testifies, or at least before cross-examination, unless the state was going to want to get into it. But I don't mind having a conversation with him outside the presence of the jury. Let's bring the jurors in, please.
Jury is all present in time for Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy King. You all can be seated. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen.
Friday.
Juror 61, it's not okay to be late. You need to stop doing that. I don't want to have a back and forth. I'm just letting you know. Everyone else is here. Everyone's getting frustrated. So we need you to be on time. All right. Mr. Rucker, if you will call your next witness, please.
Yes. Your Honor, the state will call Mr. Jay Grover.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give to the court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Can you please have a seat? Scoot close to the mic if you can. And for the court's purposes, can you say your name and spell it?
Yes, Jay Grover, Jaygrover.
And good morning, Mr. Grover.
Good morning.
And good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Counsel.
You beat me to it. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jurors by restating your name and just tell them, sir, where you currently employed?
Good morning. My name's Jay Grover, and I'm a Vice President of Special Projects at the Corey Companies. U.S. Enterprises, probably better known as the Corey Companies.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors how long have you had that current position?
Since February of 2007.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors how long have you been employed at U.S. Enterprises in total?
I initially started working for Mr. Corey when I was 15 years old. I pumped gas in one of his gas stations during high school, and later during college, I worked on one of his billboard crews. So I've been around. I've been around the Mr. Corey, Diane McIver, and the family for over 40 years.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, over the course of those 40 years, you got a chance to know Diane McIver?
Yes, quite well.
And could you characterize for the jurors, how would you describe your relationship with Diane McIver?
It was fabulous. Diane was a true friend. I mean, she was my boss. I didn't report directly to her. I've always reported directly to Mr. Corey, but I had a close personal and business relationship with Diane. Very early on, when I was married the first time, I used to attend parties at her house when she lived in Conyers and during her first marriage. And just over the years, I've attended all the Christmas functions and all for the company, and been around them all my life.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that you love Diane?
Absolutely.
Now, can you tell the jurors, how would you describe Diane as a business woman?
She was very hard-nosed. She was very driven, very ambitious. She was, as a business person, Diane was tough as nails. There was, if she put her mind to on a certain project or something, she went after it, and she was relentless in her pursuit of it.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, do you have any personal experience with what we have been calling Diane's sharp tongue? If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Diane had she had a very acerbic wit about her. I mean, she was sharp tongue. I guess that's a good way to describe her as having a sharp tongue. She was to those around her that were not to just general people that she met, but to those who were around her a lot. She had a comfortable relationship with. She was tough on you. She didn't mind. She picked at you a lot. She picked at me personally. There was always about losing weight. There was one time I recall being in a restaurant. We were at lunch and.
Just objection, Your Honor, to the relevance, and I think we're about to get into hearsay, or we're about to talk about.
Well, I'll steer away from hearsay, but
Overruled on relevance, let's stay away from hearsay, please.
okay. So let me ask you this: when she was that way with you, did it ever get to the point that it was uncomfortable?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, it was just like she was in business. She was relentless. It would go on and on. There were times when she'd start picking at somebody, and again, this is people that she knew, but she would just get on something, and she would just go on, and I'd have to bite my tongue sometimes, because it'd be very easy to kind of lash out, but then it would just keep on going from there. So I'd try to bite my tongue to. It wasn't malicious to the point that it was necessarily mean-spirited, but it got to be quite annoying, and aggravating.
Okay. Now, had you ever seen Diane McIver be that way with her husband, the way in which you have just described for the jurors?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Now, did you know Diane McIver to make loans to her friends? Did you know about that?
No, sir.
Okay. And did you know, has she ever made you a loan?
Never.
Never. And did you know anything about any loans between Diane McIver and her husband?
Well, can we clarify the foundation for that? Because it sounds like the foundation would probably be hearsay.
Specifically, I'll rephrase it. Specifically, do you know anything about a $350,000 loan to the defendant?
Same with
That leaves open the same issue. If Mr. McIver ever talked to him about it, you're probably okay. Otherwise, I
I'll
have no
rephrase it in that manner.
Okay.
Have you ever had any conversations with Mr. McIver about a $350,000 loan that his wife would give him?
No, sir.
Okay. And so, you know, was she open about her personal finances with you?
Diane, no, sir, never. Diane was a very private person. She would never discuss anything like that.
Okay. How about discussing with you any of the intimate personal details between herself and her husband? Is she the kind of person who would discuss that with you?
Their
marriage?
No, sir.
Okay.
Never.
And that's because she was a private person?
Yes.
Let's not lead anymore.
Was she a private person?
Ask and answer.
Well, you can't object to one form, and then when he makes it non-leading, say, wait, now you're doing what I just objected to, fixing it. I don't like that.
Okay. Is it okay if you answer that question, Judge? Was she a private
I
person?
think why we got the second objection, because he did answer
Okay,
the first
okay,
one.
okay.
I don't know that everyone heard it, because there was an objection,
Right.
a well-placed objection. But then you were addressing the concern raised in the objection in switching two words around in question.
Okay.
Do I need to answer?
Why don't you answer it again?
Diane was a very private person.
Now, can you tell the jurors, have you had occasions over the last 40 years to be around Diane McIver and her husband in social settings?
Many, many times.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when did you become acquainted with the defendant, if at all?
I met Tex in 2007, shortly after I came back to work for U.S. Enterprise for the company. That was the first time that I actually met Tex. I knew of Tex, but I had not actually met him.
Okay. And how would you characterize the state of your relationship with the defendant before this incident?
Great. My fiance and I, we've attended many social functions with Tex and Diane. We've spent the night at the condo. We've been to concerts with them, parties. Tex's birthday party. Every year we were invited, traveled with them, been around them many, many times.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when you were around them for those many, many times, how did their marriage appear to you?
Well, I think their marriage was stable. It's not. I never saw them argue or fuss or anything, but I mean, I wouldn't expect to. I mean, I wouldn't expect somebody to argue and fuss in front of their friends. I mean, I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't expect them to in a normal relationship.
Okay. Now, I'd like to speak to you about September of 2016, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors, how did you learn that something had happened to Diane?
Tex called me on Monday morning and told me.
Okay. And that would have been Monday, September 26th?
Monday, September 26th, shortly before 7 a.m.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you actually get the opportunity to speak to him?
Yes, he called me on my cell phone. I was at my fiance's house getting ready to get in the shower to get dressed for work, and my phone rang, and I answered it, and it was Tex.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, what did he say to you?
He said, Diane's. Excuse me. Can I have a bottle of water, please?
You finished?
You good? Just water?
Yes, sir. I've got a couple here. Thank you.
Oh, you got some right there?
Yes, sir.
Great. If you need a break, let us know.
I'm fine. So when you want to do this, he said, Diane's dead. And I said, what? What are you talking about? And the only thing I really recall after that is the words car and accident. And I don't know whether he said we were in the car and it was an accident or whether it was a car accident. I don't know. I recall the words car and accident. And he asked me if I would go tell Billy, meaning Mr. Corey. And I said I would.
Can you tell the jurors what was the demeanor in the defendant's voice when you were hearing him say that Diane is dead?
Frankly, I don't recall, Mr. Rucker. I think it was just matter of fact. He just said it.
After the defendant told you this, what did you do?
I stepped out of the master bathroom, and my fiance had heard me on the phone, and I told her, and she immediately.
Don't tell us what she said, okay?
She didn't say. She immediately broke down.
Okay.
And I said, I've got to go tell Mr. Corey. And I got in the shower, and I just tried to compartmentalize my feelings, knowing that I had to go and tell this to Mr. Corey. And I knew that we had a business with a lot of employees that were going to be devastated, and I knew I was going to have to help with that. And I just tried to put my personal feelings aside at the moment and do what needed to be done.
Okay. At that time, how old was Mr. Corey?
84 or 85. 86 years old now, so, and his birthday's in February, 84 or 85.
Okay. And you were aware of the relationship between Mr. Corey and Diane.
Oh, absolutely.
How would you characterize it?
It was like a father, daughter, husband, wife, best friend, everything that you can imagine. I mean, they shared meals together. When we'd go out to dinner, they would share the same plate of food. Mr. Corey never eat a full meal, and neither would Diane. So they would literally order one meal and split it, and not a day went by that they didn't talk, and it was a very, very close relationship. And he had been her friend, boss, mentor for over 40 years. It was a very, very close relationship.
And can you tell the jury, if you know, how about the relationship between the defendant and Mr. Corey? Did you ever see interactions between them?
Oh, absolutely. We, and when I say we, I'm speaking of Mr. Corey and myself, we had dinner or cocktails or with the defendant and Diane 2 or 3 times a week, every week, socially.
And many times, where would those dinners and cocktails take place?
Many times at Diane's condo on Kingsborough.
That's here in Atlanta, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jury, did you make it to see Mr. Corey that morning, Monday the 26th?
I did. I left my fiance's house, and I started to his house, approximately 10 minutes away in Conyers, to his estate. But before I arrived there, he actually called me.
Okay. So don't tell us what he told you, but let me just ask you this. Ultimately, did you all end up in the same car together, or vehicle?
Yes, I also live on Mr. Corey's estate, and he picked me up from my house just a few minutes later, and he drove, and I was in the passenger seat, and we started towards the office from Conyers to our office at Corey Center, which is right downtown behind the state capitol on MLK.
Where did we see the smokestack?
The tower.
The tower, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yes,
The
sir.
tower.
Actually,
It was a Georgia Power steam plant, and it was a kind of smokestack. It never actually had smoke coming out of it, but that building and that tower, they produced the steam that heated the buildings in the downtown area.
back in the day when steam heating.
Yeah, yes. It was actually only used for like 18 months or 24 months, not for a long period of time before. And then Mr. Corey bought the building in the early 1990s.
And can you tell the jury, did you actually arrive at the office with Mr. Corey?
I did.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, during those early morning hours there, Monday the 26th of September, did you have any other phone conversations with the defendant?
At any point or during the ride-in?
During the ride-in.
During the ride-in, no, sir.
Okay. Can you tell the jury, after you spoke to the defendant, can you tell the jury, did you know whether or not anyone else was involved with Diane's death?
Yes, I learned that Danny was driving the vehicle.
Okay. And did you learn that from your conversation with the defendant around 7 o'clock that morning?
No, sir.
After you learned that Danny Joe had been driving the vehicle, did you actually get a chance to talk to Danny Joe?
I did. I believe I texted Danny and asked her to come. I either called her and left her a message or texted her and told her to call me. She didn't answer. I believe I texted her and asked her to call me.
Okay. And did you actually get a chance to speak with her?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And I'm not asking you to tell us what Danny Joe told you, but did she tell you the details surrounding how Diane got shot and ultimately died?
Yes, sir, she did.
Now, when you spoke to the defendant earlier that morning around 7, did he tell you the details surrounding how Diane got shot and ultimately died?
There was no mention of her being shot when I spoke to him on the phone.
He didn't even tell you that she had been shot?
No, sir.
During the conversation, did he mention anything to you about being asleep?
No, sir.
The car hitting a bump?
I would object, Your Honor. I know you asked this question, what Mr. McIver said, and Mr. Grover said he heard the words car and accident, but don't remember what else was said.
It's a fair point. If you're referring to that
Phone
initial
conversation?
phone call,
Okay, I understand. Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, when did you have that conversation with Danny Joe?
On the ride-in from Conyers to our office downtown at the Corey Center, which takes about 25 minutes. At some point on the ride-in, I'm pretty certain I text her, and she called me just as we were turning into the parking lot at the building at our office.
Okay. And so can you tell the jurors, after having the conversation with Danny Joe, did you and Mr. Corey actually go into the office there?
Yes, sir. If I can back up a little bit in time, on the way in, then I made a telephone call to our office and actually spoke to Terry Brown, and I told Terry that Mr. Corey and I were on our way in, and would he please get Angie Brooks, Ken Rickert, and Richard Harrell. And let me back up. Angie Brooks is our executive vice president of our company. Ken Rickert is our general counsel, and Richard Harrell was at that time our chief financial officer, essentially the executive team. And I asked Terry to get them, and Mr. Corey and I would be in shortly, and for them to meet us in Mr. Corey's office as soon as we arrived.
Okay. And so once you arrived, can you tell the jurors what happened once you went inside?
Yeah. Once again, if I can back up just so, as we arrived and I spoke to Danny, returned my phone call. I put her on the speakerphone, and Mr. Corey and I sat in the parking lot of our office, and Danny told us what happened.
Okay.
Briefly told us what happened.
About how long do you think that phone conversation lasted between yourself and Danny Joe? You had on speakerphone.
You know, I would say something less than 10 minutes. I don't know exactly. I think we were in just kind of disbelief, and I really didn't ask her any questions or anything, so I'd say something less than 10 minutes.
Okay. And is that when you made it inside the office building there?
Yes, sir. We parked and we went in, and right as we went in the front door, the reception area, some of our employees had gathered in the front lobby area right there, and right as we went in, then just by the positioning of the offices, then Ms. Brooks started out of her office, and Mr. Harrell came out, and like I said, there was a few of our other employees that were there, and I think, you know, there may have been just some words said, and Mr. Corey started down what we call the executive hallway, which was the hallway in our, that kind of bisects our office building. There's two of them, but on one side where his and Diane's office were, the only two offices on that particular hallway, that he started down the hallway, followed by Mr. Harrell, Miss Brooks, and I said, you know, where's Ken at? And I started kind of around to the other hallway to get Mr. Rickard, and he met me about the same time, so he just kind of walked in front of me, and we started down the hallway. It's a relatively short hallway, and they were a little bit ahead, and my phone rang.
Okay. Let me set this up briefly. And first, let me show it to council. Yeah.
Yes. Which number?
153?
Yes, sir. I have a pointer right here. Would you step down, scroll over? As long as you keep your voice up, I think the judge will let you testify from your feet, okay?
Should have left me a little bit more room.
You and me both. Now, if you could just help orient the jurors first by showing them on States 153, where is the front door that you would have entered the office?
We entered right here, and this is kind of the outer lobby, just a small little reception area right here, and then where we would came in through this door, and then into this door, into the more the interior lobby here, this open area right here.
Okay, and show us, where's Angie Brooks' office?
This is Angie's office right here.
Okay, where's Richard Harrell?
Right here.
Where was Diane McIver's office?
Diane's was right here on this hallway here.
And where's Mr. Corey's office?
It's right beside hers. This is, again, the executive hallway. It's the only two offices, and these doors can be closed off on each end. They are, in fact, closed off and locked, you know, in the evenings, and just this to separate this area. And then this is the other hallway that goes to the back part of the building. So it's
Okay. Where's Ken Rickard's office?
Ken's office is around here, so it's down this other hallway.
Okay. What about Terry Brown?
And Terry's at the time was right here beside Mr. Rickard.
Okay. Now, could you show the jurors on this diagram, where were you when your phone rang and you looked at it?
And we're just starting down this hallway right here, following everyone else. I was the last one. Mr. Corey, Ms. Brooks, Mr. Rickard, Mr. Harrell were all in front, And so we were just going down the hallway into Mr. Corey's office.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, before I have you take your seat, when you looked at your phone, what did you see?
Diane McIver on the screen. That was the name for the number that showed up.
You knew, you had saved, or strike that. How is it that Diane McIver's name was saved in your phone? What was associated with the name?
Well, that her home number, her home number, her cell phone number, all were saved in my phone.
Okay.
Under the name Diane McIver.
Under the name Diane McIver. So when you saw that, can you tell the jurors what happened next?
Well, obviously, just seeing that, and I was just a little unnerved by seeing her name come up. But I answered the phone, and it was Tex.
Okay. About how much time had passed since the last time, or the first time you had talked to him that day?
I'm going to guess something between 3 and 4 hours. The first time was around a little before 7. This was maybe 10, around 10 o'clock.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you have a conversation with him at that time?
I did.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, what did the defendant say to you at that time, around 10-ish or so that morning?
He said, "Hey Jay, it's Tex," and I said, "Hey Tex," and he said, "Look, the press has gotten hold of this already, and you know, some bad things may come out about Diane, but I just want you to remember that she loves you." And I didn't know what to say. I was just trying to process that, and I said, "Look, we're just walking into Mr. Corey's office for a meeting. Here, let me give my phone to him." And I handed my phone to Mr. Corey, and I just sat down. The others were in Mr. Corey's office, and I just sat down, and there was just a brief conversation with Mr. Corey, and I don't even know what they said or anything, and he handed me my phone back, and I just put it away.
Now, can you tell the jurors, did you and Mr. Corey, did you all go over to the condominium located here in Atlanta on that Monday, September 26th?
No, we did not.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, on Tuesday, September 27th, can you tell the jurors what happened that morning?
I knew that Janie Calhoun was back in town. I knew that Janie had arrived back from Dallas, and I called Janie to check on her, to see how she was doing, and we engaged in a conversation. I called Janie that morning.
Okay. And after having a conversation with Janie Calhoun, did you actually travel to her condominium there?
Yes, yes, we did.
Okay.
Myself and Mr. Corey, we left the office and we went to the villas at Buckhead Heights to Janie's condo.
Okay. And Janie's condo is how far from Diane McIver's condo?
Well, it's on the same floor, one bank of elevators up to that floor, the 15th floor, and Diane there's only 4 condos on each floor of that building. Diane had 2 of them on one side of the building. Janie hers was on the opposite side of the building, same floor, and then another couple had the other condo. So physically, they're 50, 75 feet apart from door to door, maybe.
And do you know what time was it when you and Mr. Corey arrived at Janie's condo?
I'm going to guess it was around mid-morning, I believe around 10-ish, something like that, 10, maybe a little later.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors when you arrived at Janie Calhoun's condominium mid-morning, who was there?
Actually, physically within her condo?
Correct.
Danny Carter, Danny Joe, and Janie.
Okay.
And Mr. Corey and myself,
Okay.
then Mr. Corey and myself were there.
Now, is this the first time that you have had a chance to actually see Danny Joe Carter since you learned of Diane's death?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors what happened when you and Mr. Corey arrived at the condo of Janie Calhoun?
When we first arrived at the building, we went upstairs, and as we stepped off of the elevator, then Tex was in the lobby area between the 2 condos on his cell phone, and that was the first time that we had also seen him, and he was on the phone, and we just kind of hi, and we walked on and went directly into Janie's condo.
Okay. This is State's Exhibit number 73. You recognize State's Exhibit 73, this picture, the scene depicted in it?
I do.
What is it?
This is the area that I was speaking of, where you come up the elevator onto the 15th floor, and it's the lobby of that floor between the condos.
Okay. And when you step off these elevators, first of all, if you touch that screen, it'll make a mark.
Okay.
Where are the elevators?
This is the elevator. There's 2 of them, one there, and there's the other door there you can't see. So.
Okay. And which way would you go to get to Diane McIver's condo?
When you came off the elevators, you would go to the right and to Diane's condo there,
Okay.
and you'd go to the left and then back to the left to go into Janie's condo.
Okay. And where did you see the defendant standing when you and Mr. Corey got off the elevator?
He was standing right in this area, right here.
Okay. And did you see anyone else standing there? Or was he alone?
He was alone
What was he doing?
on his cell phone.
He was on the cell phone.
Yes, sir.
And was there any conversation had between you and the defendant at that time?
Nothing more than hey, or it may have. That's all of it. You know, there was no conversation.
Okay. So where did you and Mr. Corey go after you saw the defendant there?
We went to Janie's condo.
Okay. And when you arrived and got inside, can you tell the jurors what happened?
Janie and Danny were there, and we hugged, and I think we probably shed a tear or two. And we asked we asked Danny to sit down and tell us what happened.
Let me show you a photograph. It's already been admitted into evidence. Mr. Grover, State's Exhibit number 70. Recognize State's Exhibit number 70?
I do.
How do you recognize what's depicted in State's Exhibit number 70?
This is Janie's living room of her condominium. Been there many times.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when you asked Danny Joe to sit down and tell us what happened, were you in this room?
Yes.
And could you point out for the jury where everyone was positioned within the room by using this photo?
Danny was sitting right here on the couch. Mr. Corey was sitting right here on the couch. I was sitting in this side chair here, and Janie was sitting in this side chair right there.
Okay. And don't tell us what Danny Joe may have said to you, but did she tell you some details about what actually happened on the inside of the SUV?
Your Honor, I object. It's still hearsay, I think, with the content of the conversation generally about what happened inside the SUV.
Okay. I'll allow the question.
At that time, did Danny Joe Carter give you details about what happened on the inside of the SUV?
Yes, sir, she did.
How about any events that would have occurred at the hospital after the shooting? You recall she told you the details at that time?
At that time, no, sir. I do not recall her saying anything at that time.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jury, after having the conversation or hearing what Danny Joe had to say, what happened next?
Well, at some point during, if I can back up just a minute, at some point during this, then Austin Swall, who was Diane's godson, came and knocked at the door, and he wanted to come in and see us. I mean, this kid's grown up with us, and Janie told him, you know, not now, Austin, but we'll come and get you in a few minutes, and then when we finished the conversation, then there was another knock on the door, and it was Tex.
Okay. Now, do you know from where Austin was coming from when he knocked on the door? Do you know where he was? Do you know?
I
Don't
do
guess.
not-
You either know or you don't.
No, sir, I do not.
Okay.
Okay.
I do not know.
Okay. And when Tex knocked at the door, can you tell the jurors what happened?
Janie went to the door and opened it and said, "Hey, Tex, and come on in."
Okay. And did he come in?
He did.
Did you get a chance to see him?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe for the jury what was his demeanor when you saw him?
It seemed like Tex. Nothing. There was nothing remarkable that I recall.
Okay. So when he came inside, tell the jurors what happened.
Well, we sat back down, Danny and Mr. Corey sat in the same seats. Again, Mr. Corey sat right here, Danny sat here. I sat back down in my seat. Janie moved over to one of these, the side chair over here, and Tex sat down in this chair where Janie had previously, was previously seated.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did the defendant say anything at that time?
He did.
And can you tell the jurors, what did he say?
When he sat down in the chair. We all sat down. The first thing that he did, he turned and looked over at me and said, Jay, can you believe they want to charge me with reckless conduct for this thing? And I was taken aback by that. I kind of stuttered and stammered, and I said, Tex, there's I think there's some elements of a crime here. I was a former police officer, and so I think there's elements of a crime here. I was actually shocked that would be the first thing out of his mouth.
Now, can you tell the jurors, during the time that the defendant was there in the condominium that belonged to Jeannie Calhoun, in the presence of Mr. Corey, did you ever hear Mr. McIver give any details regarding what occurred on the night of Diane McIver's death?
None.
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 Can you tell the jurors, first of all, about how long did the defendant stay there inside of the condominium at Janie's house?
10, 15 minutes. He got a phone call.
Okay. And did you actually hear his phone ring?
I did.
And was he still sitting in the chair, like right alongside you?
Yes, sitting in the other side chair adjacent to where I was sitting.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors, when he got the phone call, did he say anything to you?
He did.
Can you tell the jurors, what did he say to you?
As he pulled his phone out, he looked down at it and he said, and looking to me, he said, this is my PR guy, Bill Crane. Yeah, Jay, don't you know Bill? And I said, yeah. And he said, I got to get this. And he answered the phone and got up and walked out talking on the phone.
How did the defendant refer to Bill Crane?
Objection, Your Honor. We're just repeating the answer he just gave.
I understand. How do you know Bill Crane?
I first met Bill 25 years ago through who his childhood friend later became one of my best friends, and when I first met him, we reconnected 5-6 years ago when our friend got sick and later passed away, and so Bill and I kind of reconnected
Okay.
that way.
Okay. Who is Bill Crane? What does he do?
Bill Crane's he's a public relations and marketing consultant here in the Atlanta area, and he's also a pretty prominent talking head, a political analyst on Channel 2 and WSB Radio. I actually heard him on the radio this morning on the way in.
And does the defendant leave Janie Calhoun's condo at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors how long do you all remain there at Janie Calhoun's condo that Tuesday morning?
Not much longer. We walked out, and of course, Austin had come in, and so we walked over to Diane's condo, and the doors were open. Quite often the doors were open, and Austin was there. His mother, Ann Swall, was there. Diane's housekeeper and Austin's nanny, Phyllis Gable, we call her Nana. She was there, and there were a few people there, and we spoke to them, and then we left. Maybe another 10 minutes or so, and then we left.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors? Do you know who Annie Anderson is?
I do.
Who is Annie Anderson?
Annie was a friend of Diane's in Texas. She was their masseuse, their massage therapist.
Okay. Did you see Annie Anderson at the condo that morning?
That morning, I don't recall specifically seeing Annie that morning, but she very well could have been there, but I don't recall specifically seeing her.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors on this Tuesday, September 27th, did you have the occasion to see the defendant again?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when is the next time that you would have seen the defendant?
That evening.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors where did you see the defendant?
At the condo. Mr. Corey and I, as we had done, several times a week for the previous 10 years or so, we went over to the condo on that Tuesday evening.
Okay. And do you have any idea about the approximate time you would have arrived?
6, 7 o'clock, something like that.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, when you got to Diane's condo, what did you see?
Well, there were a number of people there. There was probably 12, 15 people at the condo then when we first arrived.
Okay. Was the defendant amongst those people?
He was.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you actually went inside the condo?
Yes.
And when you got inside the condo, what did you do?
Well, sure greeted people, and then basically I went and sat down in a chair, kind of in the corner of the living room. A little hard to describe, but or the family room, not the room that we would typically be in when we would go over there in the evenings, but they were in the living area of the condo, and I sat down in a chair, in a side chair there.
Okay. I want to show you a series of photos. Your Honor, for purposes of the record, they are marked as State's Exhibits number 402 through 410, sequentially without skipping any numbers.
Okay. You had a chance to see those, Mr. Clark-Paul?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any objection? Okay, I was just tendering to evidence, Judge, this time.
402 through 410 are admitted.
Just for the record, just flip through each one of these photos, Mr. Grover, and then just tell the judge whether or not you can say that they fairly and accurately reflect the inside of Diane McIver's conduct.
They do.
Okay. Did you hear, Judge?
I did hear.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay. I want to show you State's Exhibit number 410. And can you explain to the jurors what we see in State's Exhibit 410?
This is from the dining room of the condo, looking back into what I would describe as the living room.
Okay. And in this photograph, are we able to see where you were sitting?
Yes.
Where is it?
I sit in that chair right there.
Okay. Can you make that dot a little bit bigger for the jurors in the back? Okay.
That's a big dot.
Yeah.
Good job.
This is State's Exhibit 408. Can you explain to the jurors what we see in State's Exhibit 408?
So this photo would be kind of with your back to the master bedroom, but somewhat of the view that you would see if you were sitting from the chair where I was sitting. Chairs on each side, like an entertainment center with a TV in it in between those. So this is kind of looking back into the dining room, the living room, and this being the dining room table in there.
Okay. And is that the place where you would share meals with Mr. Corey, Diane McIver, and the defendant?
And yes, and quite often Austin too.
And Austin too.
And Janie.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, from this photograph, if I wanted to get into the kitchen, which way would I go?
This is actually an archway, right? I don't know if I messed up where you can't see it now, but that's an archway that leads directly into a galley-style kitchen.
Okay. And this is State's Exhibit 407. Slide that out just a little bit. That's the galley-style kitchen?
Yes, sir.
Now, does Diane McIver's condominium have balconies that overlook really the Buckhead area?
Yes, because she put two units together as one, then she actually has two balconies on opposite sides of the building.
Okay. This is State's Exhibit 406. Recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
That's looking out onto one of the one of the two balconies.
Okay. And is that balcony, is it adjacent to the dining room area that we just looked at?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you say that Diane McIver put two condominiums together, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so what was contained in the other condominium? Did it look just like this one?
No, sir. It was different. On the other side was Diane's custom design closet and dressing room. There was a large wine room, entertainment room, and and a guest bedroom and bathroom.
Okay. State's Exhibit 404. You recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
That's the pit group that's facing the flat screen television in the area I just described. That's approximately half of the of that entertainment area.
In the second condominium.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is State's Exhibit 405. Can you tell the jurors what we see here?
That's another view that shows really kind of the other part of the. So this would be the same pit group that you were just looking at. This is taken probably from about the doorway of the guest bedroom, looking back into that part of the condominium.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, what is this right here?
It's a wine cooler.
Wine cooler.
Yes.
Did it go like almost from the floor to the ceiling?
Yes.
And what are these things here?
Those are wine racks. So the cooler, the wine racks, that's also cooler right there, and a bar sink.
Okay. Did you know the defendant to drink wine? Did you know the defendant to drink wine?
Absolutely.
Why do you say absolutely?
I don't think that there was ever a time, that I was around them in a social situation that they didn't, that there wasn't wine being consumed.
Okay. And can you tell the jury what type of wine have you seen the defendant drink before?
Well, they drink reds and whites. And when I say they, really speaking of Tex, Diane, and Mr. Corey, kind of grouping them together, they used to drink a lot of white, and someone told Mr. Corey that the white wine has more sugar in it and more calories, and so they kind of switched to red, Pinot Noir, and that seemed to be the favorite.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, over the many years that you socialized with Diane McIver and her husband, on how many occasions would you say you've seen him drink red wine?
At least 100. I mean, that's a real
I understand.
broad guess, but
I understand.
many times.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors in all the conversations you've ever had with him, has he ever said to you, Jay, I really don't drink red wine because it gives me a headache?
I've never heard that, but I guess if you drink enough of any wine, it'll give you a headache.
You might have a point there.
I've never heard that.
Okay. He's never told you, hey, I just had a couple of sips of wine, and so now I have a headache. You ever tell you anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. This is States 403. In States 403, can we see, what do we see?
The built-in wine racks in the entertainment part of the condominium.
Okay. And do you have any idea how many bottles of wine that they had in their wine rack? Any idea at all?
Just there, or just in the condominium, or?
Oh, yeah, just in the condominium.
Several hundred. I mean, several hundred bottles of wine.
Okay.
They were quite the connoisseurs of fine wines.
And can you tell the jurors, why did you kind of catch me and say, am I just talking about how many bottles of wine there in the condo? Did you know them to have wine at other places?
Oh yeah, I mean, this was the small collection of wine here. At the branch in Eatonton, there's a fabulous wine cellar beautiful there that had many bottles of wine.
There's a photograph of State's Exhibit number 41 on the screen. You recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That's a photo of part of the wine cellar at the ranch in Edenton.
I got a question for you. I can't get anybody to answer this for me. Can you tell the jurors, what did you call a bottle of wine that is that big? Do you know?
I don't know the official name, but no, sir, I don't.
No.
But I think that. Well, I don't want to guess. I believe I recognize that bottle though from an event, but
But you don't know?
no, sir.
Okay. I still don't get the question answered. Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, when you arrived at the condo that Tuesday evening with Mr. Corey, what was the mood like in the condo?
I won't say it was cheerful, but it certainly wasn't, it wasn't like, people weren't in mourning. They had sent out and bought dinner, and people were eating and just talking and laughing, and I mean it wasn't somber. I won't say that it was, over the top. It wasn't a party, but it certainly wasn't somber or anything like that.
Okay. And so can you tell the jurors, did you remain in the condo or did you leave?
No, I didn't remain in the condo. It just seemed so.
I'm sorry, could I object? I think the question and anything else he's going to say would be non-responsive and not relevant.
Okay. Why didn't you stay in the condo?
It's an objection.
I thought the objection was non-responsive.
But also, so now relevance.
What's the relevance of why he didn't stay?
Well, it goes to explain his actions because he left the condo and went somewhere, and then, without speaking from the jury.
Sure, so why don't you just figure out, ask him where he went? and
Okay.
If there's,
Okay.
I'll be able to better process the concern when we see where you're going.
Okay. So after seeing the mood in the condominium, did you leave?
I did.
Where'd you go?
I left the actual condominium and I went down to the parking deck to level P3. That's the designation of the particular part of the parking deck for the condo building.
Okay. And when you got down to level P3, did you see anyone?
Yes, and that's why I went down there, because Austin Swall and Jim Hickey, another friend, had gone downstairs. Austin wanted to throw the football. Jim formerly played at the University of Georgia, and he's a big guy, and he's a football player, and went downstairs to throw the football with Austin, and I wanted to get out of the condo, so I went down there and joined them.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors why you were down there with Mr. Hickey and Austin? Did you see the defendant?
Yes, I did. I did not know that Tex was down there, but when I walked out into the parking deck there, then Tex was down there also talking on his cell phone.
Okay. And this is, do you know about what time in the evening on Tuesday this is?
trying to put in context, it was within probably a half an hour, 45 minutes or so from the time that we arrived. So if that was at 6 or 7, this is approximately 45 minutes, 30 minutes or so after that.
Okay. Let me show you just a couple of photos. This is State's Exhibit number 83. And you recognize State's Exhibit 83? Or what's depicted in it?
Yeah, well, this is the motor court of the condominium building. So this would be like a ramp that comes down off of Kingsborough, where you would enter and you would go to your right and down through an electric gate into the actual parking deck itself, or you would turn to the left here and yes, to the left when you could pull in. There's a couple visitors parking spaces, and then you exit back out this ramp. Well, that's the walkway, but there's another ramp that's right in this general area that would.
Okay.
It kind of a half circle.
Okay. And the level P3, it's you would go down the ramp and it's below what we see here on this picture.
That's correct. You would go down, when you entered to go under the building, then you would come down the ramp into this general area here, and you would continue down right through there, and there's an electric gate that's controlled by a remote, only for the people that live there, and then that was the P3 level.
Okay. So can you tell the jurors, while you were down on that level and you saw Mr. Hickey and Austin and the defendant on his phone, did the defendant say anything to you at that time? Did y'all have a conversation?
Yeah, we kind of we were tossing the football while he was on the phone, and then he apparently finished his call, and he and I kind of gravitated toward one another, and right there while Austin and Jim continued to throw the football, and Tex and I had a conversation.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, what did he say to you at that time?
He asked me if I knew anything about Social Security and Social Security checks.
And is that all he said to you?
Well, he asked the question, and I kind of made a joke, and I said, well, I know I'm not old enough to collect Social Security yet, and he said, well, I was just wondering about Diane's Social Security, and he went on to say, I was just wondering if I could collect her checks now. And I told him I didn't have any idea. I could find out, but I had no idea whether he could. In fact, I think I went on to say, I guess you can, but I don't know. And he said, well, he would find out himself.
Who is Les Ball?
That's Les is Janie Calhoun's husband, Janie Calhoun Ball, but it's Janie's husband.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, sometime around this encounter with the defendant on the P3 level of the parking garage, when he asked you about collecting Diane McIver's Social Security checks, did you see Les Ball?
I did.
And can you tell the jurors what happened when you saw Mr. Ball?
Well, just as Tex and I were standing there, and Jim and Austin were continuing to throw the football. Then Les came down and came out into the parking deck also.
Okay. And speaking of Mr. Ball, do you know whether or not he is suffering from a medical crisis right now?
Yes, I do, and he is indeed.
Did you see any interactions between the defendant and Les Ball at that time?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did they actually have a conversation?
They did.
And were you close enough such that you could overhear the conversation?
I was.
And can you tell the jurors, don't tell us what Mr. Ball said, but can you tell the jury what the defendant said?
Yes, sir.
Please do so.
He asked Les if he knew anyone in Oklahoma. And then he made the statement that he was trying to get on the board of directors of a tobacco company in Oklahoma, and it paid $100,000 a year just to be on the board of directors. And if I can add, it was Liberty Tobacco Company was the actual name.
You remember the name of the tobacco company?
Yes, sir, I do.
And this conversation was on Tuesday, September 27th in the evening?
Yes, sir, it was.
I want to fast forward a couple of days, and I want to ask you, on or about Thursday or Friday of that same week, did you have a telephone conversation with the defendant regarding the Ford Expedition?
I did.
And can you tell the jurors, do you remember what day it was you had that conversation?
I think there were probably there were several conversations about the expedition.
Just the first one. We'll start with the first one. If you remember.
I don't remember the exact day or date, and again, we actually had a couple of conversations. There was one on there was one in particular on Friday.
Of that same week?
Yeah, if I refresh my memory as far as the actual date.
Okay. In connection with your testimony here today, were you interviewed by my office, by me?
Yes, sir.
And were there notes that kind of summarize the content of the interview that we had with you?
Yes, sir.
You've had a chance prior to today to review the notes?
I have.
And in fact, have you made corrections to the notes?
I made some corrections and some additions to the notes.
Okay. Do you think if I allowed you to see a copy of those notes, that might help to refresh your recollection about what day you would have had the phone call conversation with the defendant later on that week?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just read it silently to yourself, and you let me know when you get finished.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, having had the opportunity to review your notes, is your memory refreshed about when you would have had this conversation?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the jury when?
Again, I don't know the exact date, but it was on the Friday of that same week.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, the phone conversation, it was actually with the defendant?
Yes, sir, it was.
Can you tell the jury, what did he say?
We had a conversation about a friend of mine purchasing the SUV, the Expedition, the Ford Expedition.
The one that was involved in this incident?
Yes, sir.
And during that conversation, did you learn whether or not the defendant actually had regained custody of the SUV at that time from the police?
Yes, sir.
What did he tell you?
That he had the SUV and that it was hidden at James Hughes' house.
Who was James Hugh?
James Hugh is a friend and many of the people. I mean, myself, Mr. Corey, Tex, Diane. He's a handyman. He works for us. Works for the Corey companies part time. He cleans our offices, but he does detail work on cars.
Okay.
He's a jack of all trades.
Okay. And did the defendant tell you why he had the car hidden down at James Hughes' house?
To keep the press from getting pictures of it.
Okay. And what was the conversation like, or what was the conversation about between you and the defendant about selling the car to your friend? Tex
wanted to sell the vehicle, and my friend Mike West, I had told Tex that my friend Mike West wanted to buy. He was in the market for a car, and that would be for a vehicle, and that would be a good one.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jury, is that really true? Was Mike West really in the market to buy that vehicle?
No, sir, he wasn't.
Objection to relevance. No, remove the strike. It's just saying my
Well,
objection to the strike.
We can come to the bench. There it is. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Let me keep going.
Well, are you ever coming back to Mike West?
No.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that was a sort of non sequitur for you all. So whether Mike West exists, whether he really wanted to buy the SUV or wanted to go on vacation, not something you should worry about. Cross it out if you wrote it down. Doesn't sound like we're hearing about Mike West again.
No.
All right, sustain.
Let me ask you this. Did the defendant tell you anything about preparing the vehicle to be sold?
Yes, he said that he was going to have James detail the vehicle, clean it up, and get it showroom new.
And by cleaning up the vehicle and detailing it and getting it showroom new, did you understand from the defendant that would occur on the outside of the vehicle as well as the inside of the vehicle?
Well, showroom new to me would be inside and outside.
Objection. If he could just limit his answer to what Mr. McIver said,
Okay,
please.
fair enough. So you were responding to the question. The question took you somewhere where we didn't need to go. It's not your sense of what it meant. Just whatever Mr. McIver told you is what we go by.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I want to stay in the same conversation that you were having with the defendant on Friday, okay? Okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, can you tell the jury, is there a reason why Friday of that first week and this conversation sticks out for you?
There is.
And can you tell the jury what?
Well, at this point in time, then when Tex would call me, then I would put my phone on speaker so others could hear the conversation, and that's what I did on this call. And I put it. I was in my office, and he called me on my cell phone. I put it on the speakerphone, and I walked down while talking to him to Mr. Corey's office, and Mr. Corey and Ken Rickert, our general counsel, and Angie Brooks, all they were in his office already, engaged in a conversation, and I went in and I kind of.
That's all you did. What'd you do with your hand?
I made the motion for them to be quiet, and I pointed at my phone, and Tex was talking, and I laid the phone down on Mr. Corey's desk, and Mr. Corey, myself, Ken, and Angie could then hear the conversation on the phone.
And could you tell the jurors what did the defendant say at that time?
We were finishing up the conversation about the SUV, and he said, "I've got to run. I got to go down and see my lawyers. They want me to get down to their office and see them right away." And and I believe that I asked, what's going on, and he said they're jumping up and down, and they say that I.
And you're about to use a bad word, aren't you?
I was going to use a bad word.
I want you to say exactly what he said.
He said, they said that I have fucked up the case.
And did the defendant tell you how he had effed up the case?
I said, what's going on? And he said, it's about this newspaper article that just came out. And I said, what newspaper article? I don't know what you're talking about. And I didn't have any idea what he was talking about. And he said, oh, this article that's coming out about in the AJC. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said this one with Bill Crane. And and he said, there's nothing wrong with the article. Bill and I vetted the article, and it's fine. I don't know what they're so upset about.
I want to make sure I'm very accurate about what he told you. Bill and I vetted the article. What else did he say?
And I don't know what they're so upset about.
Bill and I vetted the article, but I don't know what they are so upset about. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did he say anything else?
He did.
Can you tell the jury what he said?
He went on to say that Bill had a friend at the AJC, and they had gotten a copy of the article and had reviewed it. And I again told him I didn't know what he, I said, well, I haven't seen it. I'll have to look for it. And he said he had to go, and we hung up.
Okay. He said that they reviewed it.
They reviewed it.
And when he said they reviewed it, it was in regards, what was it that he was saying they reviewed?
The article.
The article. And the article he was referring to, what newspaper publication was he talking about?
The AJC.
Can you tell the jurors, did he say anything else to you?
That's all that I recall.
Okay. Judge, how much longer you want me to go? This will be a natural break. I've got maybe a section or two.
Okay. I was going to ask you, you were in the middle of your board moment,
Right,
so I didn't
right.
want to interrupt that.
Right.
But I think it's a good time to take a break. We're going to need to break for lunch today, pretty close to 12:30, so that'll give us still some time after this break. So, ladies and gentlemen, morning break. Please, during your quality time together in the jury room, don't talk about the case. We'll get you back out here in about 10 minutes, close to 11:05. Thank you.
All rise for the jurors. Please be seated.
Good morning, Deputy Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Mr. Rucker, anything from the state before we break? No. Clark Palmer?
Your Honor, I think either now or when we come back from the break.
We need him to step outside before we talk?
Yes.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Grover, stepping outside, we'll get you back in here in about 8 minutes or so. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So I think we're about to start talking a little more about Andy Anderson. And I think that Mr. Grover is going to say two things that relate to Andy Anderson being at the ranch with Mr. McIver. I think maybe sometime in this first week or a few days later after Diane died. I expect that Mr. Grover will say, one, that he saw, I'm not sure, but he may say that he saw Andy Anderson wearing a pair of boots that belonged to Diane, and that somebody was going to send Annie back to Atlanta because it didn't look good to have her there at the ranch. So I'm asking that we stay away from Annie Anderson at all, based on relevance grounds, and also it seems to me as if it's really just bad character evidence as opposed to something that goes to an issue that's pertinent in this case.
Okay. Mr. Rucker, tell me what your plans were in terms of exploring with Mr. Grover anything about Ms. Anderson and the ranch.
I expect to elicit from the witness that he did travel down to the ranch that weekend or so after, approximately a week after Ms. McIver's death, and that while he was there at the ranch, he did see Ms. Anderson there, and that she was wearing a pair of very specific designer boots that he knows belong to Diane McIver because he bought them. And yes, while I turned over his notes, which indicated that Howard Seals and Javier said to Mr. McIver, you need to send Annie back to Atlanta because this doesn't look good, I don't intend to elicit that from him.
Because it would be hearsay.
Because it would be hearsay.
Okay.
But I do think it's relevant in as much as the defense has made a really, really big deal about this love between the two and how
Darling and what a gentleman and how
such
much.
a gentleman, and so I think it goes to rebut that.
Okay. I think that it is an issue in play that is reasonable rebuttal material to much of what the jury's been exposed to that would suggest that Mr. McIver isn't someone who would have Annie Anderson wearing his wife's boots just a few days after his wife died. So I'll allow that in. I'm hearing you very clearly. You do not intend to get into what Sheriff Sills, or suspecting it was Sheriff Sills as opposed to Mr. Hernandez, who was saying, you need to get out of here. But either way, if you need to caution your witness not to go there, I will note he's been very careful not to talk about what other people say unless and until you say, what did, and it's always been the defendant, say about X.
Yes.
But let's not stray into the hearsay piece.
As a matter of extra protection, would the court or defense object if I actually go out and give them that instruction?
No, I just suggested you do that.
Okay, I just
so
want to make sure.
if you have any concern about that,
I don't, but I will, just, you know.
let's be extra careful.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Yes,
Do you have other concerns that, okay, thank you for flagging that down. I'll be back out here in about 5 minutes. Space?
Yes, I am.
And Mr. Grover's in the courtroom now too.
Okay.
There's something we need to talk about.
I just wanted the court and Ms. Clark Palmer to know that I did speak with Mr. Grover during the break and
Consistent with our discussion.
consistent with our discussion.
Thank you. Okay. Deputy Murphy's checking with the jurors, and if they're ready, I'll have them come on up.
All jurors are present and accounted for, Your Honor. Please be seated.
Thank you, Deputy Murphy. Welcome back, jurors. Mr. Grover is still on the stand, and Mr. Rucker is going to move, sound like, to a different area. You can ask whatever you're going to ask next.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Grover, can you tell the jurors, after that Friday of the first week, can you tell the jurors, did you have an occasion to travel to Putnam County to the ranch that's located there?
Yes, sir, I did.
And can you tell the jurors, when did you travel to the ranch in Putnam County?
It would be on the following Monday.
Okay. And about how many days from the death of Diane McIver are we talking about?
It would be 7 days.
Okay. And for what purpose did you travel to the ranch?
To have the Tex sign a quitclaim deed on a piece of property that our company had purchased in DeKalb County that was purchased as a straw purchase through a company that Tex owned.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, before you got down to the ranch, did he know you were coming?
Yes, we discussed this and made arrangements.
Okay.
For myself, and I brought a notary with me to execute this document.
And what is the name of the notary?
I'm sorry.
What was the name of the notary that you brought?
His name's Victor Lopez, and Victor is a leasing coordinator in our office.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when you arrived at the ranch, did you see the defendant?
I did.
And can you tell the jurors what happened when you got there?
We were greeted by Tex and Annie Anderson that we spoke about earlier, the massage therapist.
Okay. I want to show you a photograph. Your Honor, it's going to be State's Exhibit number 411. Can you take a look at State's Exhibit 411 and tell the judge whether or not you recognize and can identify the person that is depicted in State's 411?
Yes, sir. That's Annie Anderson. I know her as Anderson. She's married now, and I believe she has a different last name, but I know her as Annie Anderson.
Okay. Does that photograph fairly and accurately depict the way Annie Anderson looks?
Yes, sir, it does.
I would tender State's Exhibit 411 into evidence, Judge.
Your Honor, I object. We already have Government Exhibit 376, which is a photo of Andy Anderson, so I think this is cumulative.
It's a different photo, and
Do we need more than one photo of Ms. Anderson?
I would purport that we do, Judge.
Can I see 376 and 411, please? Take that, if you don't mind. Thank you. I think we're good with 376.
We put a line in, draw 376.
We just need one picture of it. No, I hear you. Yeah, if you want to, well, I appreciate the concern you raised, and you can go forward with 411. We don't need lots of pictures of Ms. Anderson, but I appreciate the granularity or graininess of 376 that's not present in 411.
Right.
So for that reason, I'll admit 411.
Okay. And what's depicted on the screen, this is a photograph of Annie Anderson, or Annie the masseuse. Is that right, Mr. Grover?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you got down to the ranch on that Monday, 7 days after Diane's death, Miss Anderson was there?
She was.
Who else was there besides Miss Anderson and the defendant? At that time?
At that moment when we first arrived, then that was all. Those were the only two that I saw.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, when you saw Miss Anderson there at the ranch, did you notice anything in particular about what she was wearing?
I did.
And can you tell the jury, what did you notice?
She was wearing a pair of rain boots that
A pair of what?
rain boots that my fiance and I had given Diane for Christmas.
And you said rain, is that R-A-I-N?
Yes, sir. Rain boots.
How did you recognize those rain boots as boots that you and your fiance had given to Diane McIver for Christmas?
Well, they were unique in that they were kind of a Western style, and when I actually had a morning breakfast meeting at a Cracker Barrel, and I saw these boots in Cracker Barrel, and as soon as I saw them, I said, that's Diane. And I called her housekeeper to see exactly what size Diane wore, and then I bought those boots because they look like Diane.
And 7 days after her death, you saw them on whose feet?
I'm sorry.
I understand.
Ask and answer.
Okay, sustained.
Can you tell the jurors, who is Wendy Edson? Am I pronouncing her last name right?
Yes, sir. Wendy is she's a friend of mine and has been for many years, but associated with this matter, she's the owner of Phoenix Funeral Services in Conyers.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, if you know, did she have anything to do with the handling of Diane McIver's body?
She did.
And can you tell the jurors, did you have a conversation with the defendant with respect to the handling of Diane McIver's body by Ms. Edson there at the Phoenix Funeral Services home?
Well, not directly
Okay.
with the defendant.
Okay, then don't tell us any hearsay. Let me ask you this. Was there ever a time when he traveled to your home there in Conyers after this?
Yes, sir, there was.
Okay. And while there, was there any conversation with him about the handling of Diane McIver's body and going to the funeral home?
Take that picture down. please.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
There was.
Okay. And that conversation was between you and the defendant?
And Mr. Corey was present also.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, can you put us in a time frame, if you saw the defendant at the ranch 7 days after Diane McIver's death, when you would have seen the defendant at your home with Mr. Corey, put us in context.
Well, it was the next day. It was Tuesday morning, following the Monday when I traveled to have the quitclaim deed signed.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, what did the defendant say about his wife's body there at the funeral home?
At that time, he needed to get some certified death certificates so that he could open probate on her estate.
And can you tell the jury, did he say anything to you about going to the funeral home on that day?
Well, he asked if I would go and pick up the paperwork and give it to him.
Okay. What did you say?
Told him that it was just a few minutes from the house, and I would give him directions, and I, in fact, wrote down turn-by-turn directions from my house and gave it to him.
Okay. And what did he say to you after you did that? Or what did he say?
I don't recall.
Don't recall. Do you know whether or not he ever went?
Yes. He had Javier Hernandez was with him, and he and Javier went there after leaving my house.
Okay. And just remind the jurors again, who is Javier Hernandez?
Javier Hernandez was their ranch hand, property manager at the property in Eatonton, the ranch in Eatonton.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, did you ever have any future conversations with the defendant where he would have told you when he actually went to pick up his wife's ashes?
No.
Okay. Now, did you, let me ask you this, did you become aware of an estate sale regarding the sale of Diane McIver's personal items?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the jury, from your own personal knowledge, did you know Diane McIver to have very expensive jewelry?
Yes.
I want to show you a photo that's already been admitted. It's State's Exhibit number 2. And can you tell the jurors in this photograph, can we see some of Diane McIver's expensive jewelry?
Yes, sir.
And just for the purpose of the record, would you please identify what those items would be?
I see a necklace and a pendant and some earrings.
Okay. And she liked to wear hats?
She always wore hats.
Now, do you know who Steve Maples is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, in all of the many, many times that you would have participated in visits at the ranch, did you ever see Steve Maples there at the ranch in Putnam County?
Never. Never.
With all of the many social functions that you would have had and participated in at the Atlanta condominium, did you ever see Steve Maples there?
Never.
Realized I forgot to show you one more photograph from the Diane McIver condominium. This is States 409. It has been admitted. Can you tell the jurors, first, do you recognize what's depicted in this photo?
Yes, sir. That's the master bedroom at the condominium at the villas at Buckhead Heights.
Okay. Now, is this bedroom on the kind of what I'll call like the wine condominium side, or is it on the other side where we saw the dining room table?
It's on the side where the living quarters part, on the side where the dining room table is.
Okay. And you know this to be the master bedroom
Yes, sir.
where the defendant and Diane slept?
Yes, sir.
Did you know the defendant to receive massages from Annie Anderson in this room?
Objection to relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
And can we establish a foundation too?
If you know.
Well, okay, but in the future, if you're going to ask a question that starts with that, you ought to know coming in, there's a good faith basis that this is someone who has an ability to ask it. It's a subject that's been discussed earlier in different contexts, but that's one where I'm going to direct you, if there are going to be other witnesses, that you first establish that there be a reason for the person saying other than, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I get it. Let me first go back, all right? We'll go back. Let me ask you a question first. Do you know whether or not the defendant received massages from Annie Anderson in this room? Do you know?
Not that I am aware of in the master bedroom.
Okay.
So just so we're clear going forward, if there are other witnesses you might explore this with, don't start with a particular location other than within the condominium as opposed to going to a massage facility. And then if the person says, sure, I know about that, then I'll permit you to narrow the focus to where in the condominium.
Okay. Given the witness's answer, Judge, am I free to ask him where in the condominium he's aware of?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you tell the jurors where within the condominium are you aware that the defendant would receive massages from Annie Anderson?
Well, at the time that I had been at the condominium, when Annie was there performing massages on the defendant, then they would have been in the entertainment side of the condominium. I do not know if they were in the guest bedroom or in the main entertainment area, but I know that they were on that end of the condominium.
Okay.
That side of the condominium.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to ask you about a really particular incident, and I want to ask you whether or not you had any conversations with Danny Joe Carter after that meeting with Billy Corey on the Tuesday morning at Janie Calhoun's condominium. Did you have conversations with Danny Joe Carter after that regarding this incident?
Yes, multiple.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, did Danny Joe Carter ever tell you what the defendant said to her while they were at the hospital following the shooting?
Yes, sir.
And could you give us a little context about when she would have told you what the defendant said to her while they were at the hospital?
Well, I need to explain as I tell this. I mean, I've known Danny for 25 plus years, and we were close friends, and I guess I counseled with her some. I mean, this was obviously very hard on all of us, and she, in a conversation that I had with her, the first time that I recall is specifically about what was said was at a time I'm trying to get in context of the time frame, Mr. Rucker, but I made arrangements for Danny and her husband Tom to stay at Dale and Angie Cardwell's house, and so whenever that incident, whenever that was, just prior to that, that's kind of what precipitated her going to stay with them. Was we had a conversation, and she talked more about what went on at the hospital, and that's what kind of that's my time reference, my frame, but I don't know exactly what that date was or even that day.
Okay.
But that's how I recall.
Okay. And can you tell the jury, whatever day or date it was, can you say to us that you know that the conversation between you and Danny Carter would have taken place before she actually would have gone to Dale Cardwell's house?
Yes, it would.
Okay, okay. So could you tell the jury, what did Danny Carter tell you the defendant said to her while they were at the hospital after the shooting?
Well, the thing that sticks out most in my mind is that Tex had told her that that she could, for her to leave from there, and like she wasn't like she wasn't a part of it. That why didn't she just go ahead and go and leave the hospital, leave the emergency room. That's what really sticks out in my mind.
Okay. And is it during this conversation that would have prompted you to make arrangements for Danny Joe Carter and her husband Tom to go to Dale Cardwell's house?
Well, again, part of this was the defendant's attorney at the time, Steve Maples, was wanting.
Okay, so objection,
There's an objection.
if we're getting into hearsay.
Okay.
And I think Mr. Rucker asked a pretty specific question that called for a yes or no answer.
Okay, and you're always free to explain your answer
Yes,
the
sir.
way you were explaining this one. Caused some concern, which I understand, and we would need to stay away from that. I can think of a couple of reasons why. So
Let me just ask the question again.
maybe you can help focus him or repeat
Yeah.
the question. It won't be asked and answered.
No,
Okay.
I'd like to read the questions.
Okay. Can you just tell us, could you had a conversation with Danny Jo Carter, right?
Yes, sir.
About how long did the conversation last with her, you think? You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay. And what I'm trying to see is whether or not, as a result of the conversation you had with her, is that what prompted you to make arrangements for she and her husband to go to Dale Cardwell's?
If I'm following, yes. Initially, we talked about her and Tom coming to my house, but Dale lived closer, so I contacted Dale and Angie and said, hey, can Danny and Tom come to your house and put them together? They friends, they know one another and all. It wasn't stranger to stranger or anything, but.
Okay. Now, you said that you were a police officer, correct?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask you, where were you a police officer and for how long?
Conyers Police for almost 20 years. My career started at Conyers.
Okay. Last one. Let me ask you this. When you told us earlier that the first conversation with the defendant, the words that stuck out for you were car and accident, and this is just to kind of set up, just to ask the question, counsel. And you don't know whether or not it was car accident together or the two words that are separated. Let me ask you this. During that conversation with the defendant, did he ever mention anything to you about Hill Street?
No.
Your Honor, I believe that's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Ms. Clark Palmer.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Grover. My name's Amanda Clark Palmer. We got to meet very briefly outside, right?
Yes.
So towards the end of your direct testimony there, we were talking a little bit about Annie Anderson,
Yes.
right? And did I understand you correctly to say that you have seen her giving a massage to Tex McIver?
No.
You haven't seen that,
Absolutely not.
okay? Have you seen her giving a massage to Diane McIver?
No.
But you know that she did give massages to Diane McIver, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Annie Anderson has also given massages to Billy Corey, is that right?
I don't know that, but it's quite possible.
Okay. She is a massage therapist, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Corey also has or had a condo in that same Villas Tower, 1402, is that right?
The company did, yes.
Right. Well, and Mr. Corey had access to that condo, correct?
Yes.
And he would go to that condo sometimes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But you don't know if Annie Anderson ever gave a massage to Mr. Corey at the condo at the Villas?
I don't know that directly, but it's certainly possible.
Okay. And you know that in addition to being a massage therapist, Annie Anderson was friends with Tex and Diane McIver, right?
Yes, absolutely.
She traveled with them sometimes, didn't she?
She did.
She went with them on a trip to Africa, didn't she?
To, I believe, South Africa, but yes.
Okay. And you were telling us about the boots that you had bought for Diane. And when you say rain boots, am I right that we're talking about some kind of like a tall boot? Maybe that would come up to about your knee or mid-calf?
Mid-calf.
Okay. And made of maybe some kind of rubber-like material?
Yes.
As opposed to like a leather boot?
Correct.
Okay. And you purchased those for Diane as a Christmas gift?
Yes.
Is that what you told us? In 2015?
I don't know what year it was.
Okay. And that was something that, I think you said you saw it at Cracker Barrel, right?
Yes,
Okay. And Ms. McIver kept those at the ranch?
yes.
Okay. And you saw her with the boots out at the ranch?
Diane?
Yes.
I don't recall specifically seeing her wear them, but at the ranch, but she said she was going to take them to the ranch, and that's where I thought that they would be most appropriate for her to have them.
Okay, all right, but you didn't actually ever see her wear those at the ranch?
No,
And you don't know if she ever allowed anybody else to wear them when they were at the ranch?
I do not know that.
Okay. And don't know how it came to be that Andy Anderson was wearing this pair of boots, right? I mean, you, on the day that,
No, I do
You
not
saw
know.
her.
No.
okay. But, so you told us about your relationship and friendship with Diane McIver, right?
Yes,
And, I mean, you buy her Christmas gifts,
sure,
yes? Birthday gifts,
sure.
okay? And you said you had known her for quite some time?
Yes, over 40 years.
Okay. And you told us about how she could be, she had an acerbic wit.
Yeah.
I have to look that word up, but is that kind of the same, is it the same thing as
Well,
sharp?
I hope I'm using it correctly, but sharp.
Okay, okay. And you said that sometimes she could say things to you that could be sharp.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes about your weight, is that what you said?
Weight, my past love, interest, yeah,
Okay. Didn't maybe like some of the people you had dated previously?
that's correct.
Okay, and she let you know it.
In no uncertain terms and many, many times.
But you loved her,
Sure, I loved her.
okay? Because she also was kind-hearted,
Very kind-hearted.
and she could be generous to her friends,
She could be generous to a fault, I think.
okay? And she may have had her own faults, right?
Yes,
Okay. But that's what friendships are, loving people in spite of their faults.
correct.
Okay. And you said that you met Tex McIver in about 2007?
Yes,
And that was, you kind of related it to a time when you came back to work at U.S. Enterprises?
yes,
Okay, so he was married to Diane at the time you met him.
yes.
You did not meet him when they first started dating?
I did not meet him then, no. I knew of him, but it was after February of 2007 when I actually met him
Okay.
in person.
Okay, and you, did you attend their wedding?
No, I did not. I'm not sure what, I received an invitation, but I'm not sure why I didn't attend.
Okay, but they got married in 2005?
Yes,
Okay, and then you meet him about 2 years later or something like that?
yes,
Okay. And you know Austin Schwall, right?
very, very well.
Okay, and you know him because Diane brought Austin Schwall to her office, right? Did you see him at the Corey
Oh,
building?
yes, many times.
Okay, and you know that Austin was Diane's godson,
Yes,
and he was also Tex's godson?
yes,
Okay, and you know that Diane loved Austin very much?
I think she loved him more than anything on this earth.
Okay, and Austin loved Diane?
Mommy died. Yes, yes, he did.
Okay. And Austin spent time out at the ranch with both Tex and Diane, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you go to Austin's birthday parties at the ranch?
Every year.
All right. And it's not just a birthday party with a clown and a cake. It's like a big to-do, right?
It's a very it's a very elaborate affair. They knew how to throw a birthday party for Austin.
Okay. So let me move to September 26th. That's a Monday, correct?
Yes,
All right. And you told us about the phone call, you said that Tex called you, right?
yes,
And after that call, you and Mr. Corey go to the Corey offices, right?
yes.
Okay. And it sounds like the first phone call with Mr. McIver was short, a pretty short call, do you remember?
That morning, yes, yes.
And at that time, it sounds like Mr. McIver, do you remember if he said anything to you about, how long he had been awake at that point?
No,
Okay. Did he tell you anything about being treated at the hospital?
no, ma'am.
Okay. Didn't tell you if he was taking any medication at that point in time?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And so you go to the offices, and from the offices, you told us that you get a call on your cell phone, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And this is the call on your cell phone, it says Diane McIver, right?
yes.
But I want to make sure I understand, was it coming from the landline in their condo?
That's what I assumed, that it was coming from the landline in the condo.
Okay.
I-
I guess maybe, let me ask a better question. In your phone, did you have the landline at the condo programmed under Diane McIver's name?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
all right. So you get the phone call, and I just want to make sure that morning, was there any time where you or somebody in your presence called Mr. McIver?
I didn't call him, and I don't recall anyone, no one that I'm aware of in my presence
Okay.
called him.
Okay, so this phone call, he calls you, this is the second time he has called you now, that day, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And then the next day, you go over to Janie's condo on Tuesday.
yes,
Okay.
Tuesday morning.
Okay. And that's the day that you have the conversation with Danny Jo, Janie, and Mr. Corey.
Correct.
Let me find that picture. Because I missed when you told us who was sitting where. So on state 70, I missed when you told us who was sitting where when Mr. McIver knocks on the door and comes over. Is that, you understand?
No,
On the screen,
Right.
can you tell me, when Mr. McIver comes over to Janie's condo?
right,
After you all had already been there?
right.
Okay. And you relayed to us the conversation you had with Tex at that time. This is the conversation where
Yes.
he says, do you believe they want to charge me?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
What-
So where were we
Yes,
sitting
I
then?
missed it.
Okay.
When you told us that before.
Excuse me, this chair,
I think, we have played musical chairs with that chair all week.
They swap them out.
It's not you, it's the chair.
Okay.
It doesn't work right.
so Mr. Corey this is when Tex is present.
Correct?
Mr. Corey is sitting here, Danny is sitting here, that's on the couch.
On the sofa, okay.
I'm sitting here, Janie is sitting here, and Tex is sitting in this side chair there.
And how far apart are you and Tex? I mean, we can see it on the screen, but for the record, are we like as far apart as you and I are?
Oh, no.
Closer?
3 feet or less.
Okay.
Just the width of that table there.
Okay. And how far apart are Mr. Corey and Danny Jo on the sofa?
How far are
From
they?
you.
Oh, from me, I'm gonna guess that's 8 to 10 feet, maybe.
Okay.
That distance in there.
But you could hear what, y'all were close enough that everybody could hear what people were saying, if you're talking in
Sure,
normal.
it's a conversation area there.
Okay. And Tex walks in, you said Janie goes and opens the door after he knocks on the door, right?
Yes,
Okay. So the three of you all are still in the living room when Janie goes to let Tex in?
well, yes, but understand the door is just right here. It's,
Close?
yes.
Okay. And so Tex comes in and sits down?
Yeah, I believe we greeted one another. It was really the first time that we had seen each other than just briefly in the hallway when he was on the cell phone when we got off the elevator. So we greeted one another.
Okay. Does he greet Mr. Corey?
Yes.
All right. And he sits down and he looks at you and says, do you believe they want to charge me with?
Yeah, he turned to me right across the little table right here and said that.
And this is on Tuesday the 27th?
Correct.
Okay. Which is before Wednesday the 28th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You don't know if Mr. McIver had given a statement to the police at that time, do you?
At that time, I don't know if he had at that time or not. I mean, I do know when he gave a statement, but at that time, I don't believe that he had given one. I was not aware of him giving one prior to that meeting on that morning.
You know he did give a statement to the police?
Yes,
And you know that that statement was given after this conversation?
that's correct, on the
Okay.
Wednesday following this.
Okay. And so the basis of him saying to you, can you believe they want to charge me with whatever, you don't know where he got that information?
I have no idea.
And you didn't ask him?
No.
Okay. You told us what you responded to him. And how long does this conversation last?
The conversation with the entire group,
Yes.
it wasn't long. I'm going to guess maybe 15 minutes at the max. I don't know exactly, but it wasn't a long, drawn-out conversation.
Okay. And when he makes the comment to you about being charged with something, Danny, Joe, and Mr. Corey are on the sofa, correct?
That's correct.
And Janie has come back and sat back down in her chair?
In this other side chair over here.
All right. And he doesn't whisper this to you?
No, he just turns and says it.
Okay. And at that point in time, you don't know if Mr. McIver had slept at all, right?
I don't have any idea.
Don't know if he was taking medication at that point in time?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay. And Mr. McIver knew that you had been a police officer before, right?
Sure.
Okay. And then it was later that evening that you told us about the people who were, the 15 to 20 people who were gathered in the condo. That same day?
Yes,
All right, so you leave the condo, right?
correct.
You and Mr. Corey,
Yes.
and then you came back later.
He and I both came back later.
Okay. That same day,
Yes,
still on the 27th.
yes,
All right. And you told us about the mood in the condo, right?
yes,
And you go downstairs to the parking garage, and when you're down there, you see Tex, right?
yes,
All right. So if Tex is in the parking garage, he is not up in the condo, right?
at that point, no.
Okay. And it's at this point in time on Tuesday that you hear Tex and Mr. Lesball having the conversation about the tobacco company in Oklahoma.
Yes,
Okay. So Lesball, I think you told us, is Jamie's husband,
yes,
and he travels for business, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
He goes to Texas a lot. Do you know?
Well, they have he and Janie have a condominium in Texas, in Dallas, so yes,
And Les Ball is a pilot, right?
yes,
He flies his own plane, right?
correct.
Okay. And do you know that he flew his plane back to Atlanta after Diane died? Do you know?
I think I have since learned that. I did not know that at the time, but I think I've since heard that.
You know that at the time Diane died, that Les was in Texas.
Yes. Well, I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know that he was in Texas. I know that he wasn't in Atlanta, but I don't know where he was at.
He was out of town.
Yes.
All right. But obviously, you see him back in Atlanta on the 27th.
Yes.
Okay, so somehow he has gotten back to Atlanta.
Yes.
All right. And Les Ball used to be the president of Riches, is that right? Or
Macy's. Macy's.
Okay. And he serves on different boards of other companies, right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
All right. And who was it that you remember said Liberty Tobacco Company, said the name of the company? Was that Mr. McIver or Les?
Tex.
Okay. Had you ever heard Tex or Les talk about Liberty Tobacco Company before?
No.
Okay. So don't know if this was some business arrangement that had been in the works before, right?
I have no idea.
You just know what you told us you heard on that Tuesday, the 27th?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand that later that week, you had the conversation with Tex about the Ford Expedition, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you knew that the Ford Expedition had originally been taken by the police, right?
Yes.
And then it got returned to Mr. McIver,
Yes.
and he wanted to sell it.
Yes.
That's what he told you.
Yes.
This is the same vehicle where Diane was shot, right?
Correct.
He didn't want to own it anymore, right?
I assumed if he wanted to sell it, then he didn't want to own it.
Yeah. And so he told you he was going to get it cleaned up and ready to sell. He was going to have James Hugh do that for him, right?
Yes.
Okay. And he didn't say to you that that the police had told him he couldn't sell the car, right?
No.
Okay. He didn't say to you that anybody had told him he couldn't sell the car, right?
Correct.
And you're a police officer, you were a police officer, right?
Yes.
So you know that the police would have processed the vehicle or done whatever they needed to do with it before they returned it back to Mr. McIver.
That's generally the practice.
Police are not in the habit of giving something that may be a piece of evidence back to somebody who's a witness in the case and saying, you hold on to this. We may ask for it back. Don't worry about it. We're going to let you hold it. That's not typical.
Stop for a second.
Yeah, before he answered that question, I really think that the parts of the issue is what the police in this case did. They would call for this witness to speculate about why they did or did not do certain things.
I can move on.
Okay.
Well, so you know the police in this case did process the vehicle or did whatever they needed to do to the vehicle before they gave it back to Mr.
Objection.
McIver.
Right, so you've established through this witness that Mr. McIver had the vehicle back. You have not established that this witness would have any knowledge as to what was or wasn't done with the vehicle while it was in the possession of whatever authority had it.
Did Mr. McIver tell you that the police had done anything to the vehicle, processed it?
I don't recall having that conversation with him.
Okay. Mr. Rucker asked you on your direct examination about some notes that you had reviewed and made changes and corrections to, right?
Yes.
Remember that? And are these the notes that we're talking about? Those the same notes that he reviewed and that's your handwriting on them? Not this part,
Yeah, not that part.
the black.
Yes.
Okay. So you were interviewed by people with the district attorney's office in February of this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. And have you been interviewed by people with the district attorney's office before that?
That depends on the definition of an interview. I had spoken with them on different occasions, but as far as a one-on-one interview, this was the first time, first and only time,
Yeah.
as far as a one-on-one.
Well, when I say interview, I just mean time when you're talking about what you know about this incident, as opposed to, hey, what time do I need to come to court, or, when's the next court date?
Right. Again, I had conversations with the district attorney's office before about this case but not in a one-on-one setting where I was the only one present and they were speaking directly to me.
The other conversations, there were other people present?
Yes.
Who?
There was one time at our office.
Right.
It was kind of a general round table introduction in our conference room.
Right.
And the question, I'm sorry, would you repeat the question? As far as the people, you want to know?
Just on the other occasions when you've been,
Yeah.
you talked about the case not in a one-on-one situation.
Mr. Corey, Ken Rickert, those two in particular, and at our office, there very well could have been others that were there at the time, but specifically there was a time when it was myself, Ken Rickert, and Mr. Corey.
Okay, being interviewed by members of the DA's office. Or if you don't want to like the word interview.
Well, yeah, we had a discussion about the case.
Okay.
Yes.
But you've only seen notes from this one interview.
Yes, that's,
Okay. But, and I understood that you told us that these are notes that somebody else took. The typed parts are notes that somebody else took, right?
yes, correct.
Somebody with the district attorney's office took the typed part of the notes, right?
That's correct.
And they handed it back to you and said, review it.
They
Okay.
emailed it to me.
Okay. And you printed it out,
Yes,
and you made some handwritten notes on it.
that's correct.
Because there were sometimes where you were adding in some information that wasn't reflected in the notes, correct?
Yes,
But sometimes you would strike something out that was typed in the notes, right?
yes.
Because whatever was typed was inaccurate, right?
Well, if I can look, I can see and tell you whether it was inaccurate or whether the reason why I struck it. Well, for example, right here on,
Don't read it, but tell me why you crossed it out.
well, because they have the name Corey and it should be Grover.
It was a mistake,
Yes,
okay? And for whatever reason, whatever was typed down was not correct, right?
yeah, that's correct.
Maybe somebody misheard what you said, right?
Possibly,
Okay. That happens, right? People mishear things,
they do.
and you got a chance to go back and correct it
That's correct.
and tell the DA, hey, you got this wrong. Here's what I said, or here's what I meant to say, or whatever.
Yes.
Maybe they typed something down that you said, but when you spoke it, you misspoke. Is that a possibility? You understand what I'm saying?
No, I mean, say it one more time.
Maybe they typed down words that you said, and on looking back on it, you said, oh, maybe I said that, but that's not what I meant. Maybe I misspoke, and that's why they wrote it down incorrectly.
That's
Could be.
possible.
Okay. Because people make mistakes like that, right?
Sure.
Thank you, those are all my questions.
Mr. Ruther, anything else?
Just one. When you had the conversation with the defendant at Jane Calhoun's condominium on that Tuesday morning,
Yes, sir.
did you know whether or not he was being represented at that time by Steve Maples? Did you know?
I did not know.
Okay. That's all.
Any questions from the jurors for Mr. Grover? Deputy Murphy will come collect it. Thank you. Mr. Grover,
Yes, sir.
did Ms. Carter, Danny Jo Carter, ever share with you that a reason why she and her husband wanted to stay with you ultimately, Mr. Cardwell, was because she felt like she was being hounded by the media? And nothing magic about that term, but that was her sentiment. Is that clear? Did I ask that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I want to, that was part of the reason why they, and I actually am the one who suggested that they leave, but that was part of the reason.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's something she expressed to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know who specifically returned the SUV, the white SUV, to Mr. McIver after it was wherever it was? And asked that, well, it was involved in an incident.
Yes, sir.
And for a while it was not with Mr. McIver. You've testified that it was with Mr. McIver.
Yes, sir.
Trying to sell it. Do you know who it was who returned it to Mr. McIver?
As
A person?
A person? No, sir, I do not.
Okay, and do you have any knowledge as to where the vehicle is now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what's your understanding as to where the vehicle is now?
Okay, well, and how he knows?
Do you, it's a fair concern. If you're concerned about the answer, then I'll,
That's
okay. What's your understanding as to where the vehicle is now?
In in police custody.
Okay. Any follow-up on that, Mr. Rucker?
Now I'll take direction from the court in light of Mr. Grover's answer with respect to avoiding the media being part of the reason why she left.
Okay.
I would just forecast to the court, I would like to ask him what she said was the other part.
Okay. I don't have an issue with that. It's a question of whether there's an objection to that.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors, Mr. Grover, what was the other part of the reason why Danny Jo Carter wanted to leave her home that night?
Well, I'm thinking about the question.
Sure.
It's hearsay. I know I didn't object to the first part of the question being asked, but I don't think the second part of the question would meet any hearsay exception, like prior inconsistent or prior consistent statement.
Okay. What would your theory of admissibility be, Mr. Rucker? I don't think we need to talk about, in answering me, I don't think you need to share what the answer would be. It's just, what would the exception to hearsay be in this situation?
Well, Your Honor, I believe that it would go to show a prior, I believe it would be an inconsistent statement in that, and I don't really want to speak in front of the jurors because in order for me to articulate it.
You believe that your understanding of what Mr. Grover would say is something that you think is not consistent with something that Ms. Carter said in the past?
Correct, and Mr. Carter,
Okay.
when asked.
But if this would, the question is, what did Danny Jo Carter say?
Right, that's correct.
If you want to share with Ms. Clark Palmer, just walk over there and tell her what you think the answer is going to be, then
Right.
she's in a position to say, oh, I thought about it that way, that would be prior
Sure.
inconsistent, or she could disagree, and we'll have you come up here.
Okay. Mr. Grover, could you share with the jurors what was the other part of the reason why Danny Jo wanted to leave her home that night?
Because Steve Maples, the defendant's attorney, was going to send an investigator to pick her up and bring her to his office to give a deposition statement with the media present, and she did not want to do that.
And did she tell you that this request had been made of her by the defendant himself?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you have any follow-up based on the few questions from the jurors, Ms. Clark-Palmer?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Grover, thank you for your time.
Am I excused?
You are, sir.
Thank you.
Who's your next witness?
Your Honor, we would call Richard Ahlers.
So just timing-wise, we got about 5-7 minutes before we need to break for lunch because of this other matter that's coming in here. I don't know, I'm not expecting you to finish within then. Do you get traction, or why would we do
Get some
5
basic introductions. He's
Let me guess, he would say, I'm Richard Ahlers, and he'd tell the folks what he does for a living.
And that's pretty
You
much
may
it.
ask him how old he is.
and how old he is,
Okay.
what color his eyes are.
Okay.
No.
All right, then let's have Mr. Ahlers stay outside. We're not gonna make the lunch break any longer, we'll just do the normal lunch break. Just, we'll start it a little earlier, and I'll come back in a few minutes to see if the person shows up. It's an unrelated matter. So, the clock over there says 12:20, so does the computer. Why don't we try to reconvene at about 1:05? 1:05, enjoy your lunch, don't talk about the case, no outside research, and we'll see you around 1:05. Thank you.
All rise for the jurors.
You may. I'm standing too. Mr. Rucker, anything from the state before we break?
No.
Okay. Ms. Clark-Palmer?
Yes, Your Honor. When are you going to inquire with the jurors about April?
There you are again with those
Yes.
scheduling things. I thought we would do that after lunch.
Okay.
I received information as to the 6 jurors who would prefer April 2, the 5 jurors who would prefer April 9, and then some of them, okay, we don't really have a preference. I have a preference.
Yeah.
I'm getting some info that there would be some challenges for some witnesses that first week. And so what I am going to do, but I'll work with you all if you want to approach it a different way, is that I'm going to have the 6 who have said they prefer the week of April 2 to come in individually to hear from them. Is that a preference? Is it I can't serve ever again after April 6th because, or I'm just sharing my preference, Judge, but you know, a week off, I could survive that and come back.
Okay.
It may be that there are a couple we lose no matter what, which may be one reason why we had 4 and now 3 alternates. But what I'd like to do at 1:05-ish is start calling in the folks who have said first week is their preference to see how rock solid that is. Any issue with that?
No, that sounds good. We're just trying to manage the schedules of our witnesses and other things, so
Yeah.
that's fine.
It wasn't fun last night at home.
Yeah.
Mr. Rucker, any issue with approaching the scheduling conundrum that way? All right. You guys are on lunch break. Be back a little after 1 o'clock.